All right, hello. Welcome to Current Affairs. I'm Associate Editor Alex Skopic.
And I am current affairs contributor Stephen Prager, and I'm also a reporter for Common Dreams.
And we're here with Jason Woods from the Starbucks Union, Starbucks Workers United. He's a organizer, national spokesman. He knows what's going on. Jason, thanks for coming on.
Thank you so much. Thank you for allowing me to be here today.
Yeah. All right, so just to start, I want to ask, for anybody out there who might not know much or anything about the Starbucks Union, how did this get started? Why are Starbucks workers trying to unionize?
So Starbucks Workers United started in about 2021 in Buffalo, New York. Those brave souls led the way for over 600 stores now to be able to be unionized and to have protections against upper management, against any kind of issues that may arise in the workplace, to know that baristas have rights as much as any other worker. Like I said, since 2021, we went from, one brave set of baristas up in Buffalo to almost 637, I want to say now.
Yeah.
At the time of recording, 637 stores. And we're just rapidly growing. And we're organizing because we deserve to be able to be, protected. We'd be able to have, better wages, better working conditions for our baristas. And it's the same as any other kind of work. And we feel like we deserve that. That's kind of the long and short of it all. Yeah. We deserve better.
Yeah, absolutely. I follow, your press releases, your social media accounts, and I swear every 2 or 3 days I get an alert. Another Starbucks has unionized, and I know it was maybe 7 or 8 months ago. It was in the 500s, and now it's 637. Incredible.
Yeah, no, we're rapidly growing, and it just goes to show how baristas are just waking up to the many things that not just Starbucks, but almost every corporation is doing that are anti-worker, anti-labor. They make all of this money. They make so much money. And yet they refuse to pay us what we're worth. And ultimately, that's what it is. We're just trying to be recognized for the worth that we have. Because, with any kind of coffee shop, people come in there to grab coffee and to be able to have a space to enjoy, to relax, or to work. Yeah. And with what Starbucks is doing is very just anti-consumer as well. Yeah. Just the many changes that they made, trying to force us to do many things, like have faster, drive-through times. Because, most stores, a lot of them are drive-through, and they're trying to make everything as quick as possible. And there's a certain point where quick doesn't equal fast. And quick doesn't equal fast, as in quick doesn't mean that the drink would be made the way that you expect it to be. Yeah. And we are all being rushed. We are all being just treated so badly by our management.
and I go into Starbucks, sometimes, and I see, they've got all these wild seasonal drinks, and they've got 3 different colors, and they've got marshmallows, and they've got a swirl of God knows what, and they expect the workers to put those together in what, a minute?
Less than a minute. Speaking of drive-through times, if I remember correctly, right now they wanted to have everything be done under a minute, around 45 seconds. Jesus. Meanwhile, trying to maintain something like mobile orders or cafe orders or delivery orders. There are so many ways that you can grab a Starbucks drink now that it just puts so much pressure on us to have to get it done right, have to get it done to where some Karen won't be oh my God, I waited 2 minutes for a drink, which she'll say 20, but I made so long for this drink. Yeah. And it's these things that Starbucks is doing is tarnishing our relationship with the customers that they want us to have connections with so badly. They're forcing disingenuous connections with these people when we were doing fine having connections with people. Customer connections is one of the main cruxes of our of us anyway, because people rely on us to get through the day. People rely on baristas to get their day started or end their day or have a little treat in the middle. And the fact that Starbucks is doing so many things that tarnishes that relationship we've had with our customers, it's abysmal.
Yeah.
It's asinine.
What is the average pay for a barista these days?
So on paper, they claim that the average barista wage is about $19. But in reality, they take into account places like LA, Seattle, New York, places where the cost of living and their minimum wage is substantially higher than places like here in New Orleans, where the minimum wage in Louisiana is still $7.25. Yeah. And the minimum wage for Starbucks is $15. And you think that 15 is a decent wage for someone, sitting in coffee. But at the rate things are going with inflation and just with tariffs, everything going on right now, $15 is not enough for any barista or any person to live, especially if they're trying to do like a 1 or 2 bedroom apartment by themselves. They either have to have a partner or a roommate. They have to have some kind of financial help. Many of us are doing 2 to 3 jobs to make ends meet while still being here. And people will say, oh, if you just don't like it, if you think you're not getting paid enough, leave. But what does that do for the future baristas that come through those doors? Yeah. What, for anybody else who's trying to find a job with Starbucks, us unionizing is the only way to be able to ensure that any barista, current, former, and future, will be able to secure having a decent living wage, or at least get closer to that.
Yeah. And I remember, the fight for 15. That's always been the slogan. But that started in 2002, 2003, and 15 is no longer goes as far as it used to.
No, I want to say that if I remember correctly, now in order to afford a 1 or 2 bedroom apartment, you have to make at least $24 to $25 an hour minimum in order, and that's assuming 9 to 5, 40 hours a week, to be able to have enough to meet these whole things where it's you have 30% for need, 30% for wants, 10% for saving. Trying to follow those rules is almost $25 an hour. And maybe the shift supervisors are making that much, but even then, taking out taxes and other things. And if you want to be real, the wage that they claim to say to have for an average barista, they include benefits. Granted, Starbucks has decent benefits, but including benefits as a part of the pay, that's not right. Because that's not part of your take-home pay.
So that means they're taking the value of what your health insurance,
yes,
and they're considering that wages.
Basically, they're taking the value of health insurance, our therapy, maybe stuff like Spotify, our ASU, our school, tuition and not even reimbursement. Their tuition program where they're paying for tuition. They're taking the value of all of that, and for people who don't even use those things, is disingenuous to claim that we're all making this much when they're taking that value into account.
And it starts to feel even more stark. There was a recent AFL-CIO report showing that the new CEO of Starbucks makes, I believe it was 6,666 times what the average worker at Starbucks makes, and he has a yearly salary of $98 million.
Who needs $98 million per year? First of all, there's no one in their right mind who needs that much money to live. And it's almost cartoonish. It's almost cartoonish how evil that number is. Almost 7,000 times the amount of the wage of an average barista, which they claim is 19, but here's 15. Mm-hmm. And it was the even crazier part about all of that is just the average CEO makes between maybe about 400 to 1,200 more. Why is it that Brian Nickel is making almost 10 times that alone, on top of his huge sign-on bonus from taking him from Chipotle? Yeah. which I think was already about 113 million. At me if I'm wrong, but I want to say it's about $113 million to sign on top of the fact that he made almost $98 million within 4 months. His first 4 months as CEO. From about, I'm gonna say late August, early September to about January 2025. That's how much he made.
And when you think about what that means in terms of like our relations as people, when you say a couple of months of this guy's life is worth more than most people's entire life, it just really becomes disgusting.
And yeah, it's very disgusting. And that's why I've been fighting for a contract. That's why I've been fighting for a contract for us to be able to secure better wages and protections and healthcare and, every single thing that a lot of other unions have in their contracts, we want. And we want to be able to make sure that every barista that, joins our union is able to feel secure in knowing that those things are there and not they don't have to worry about having their job like over their heads every single moment.
And you mentioned the dress code. And I want to talk a little about that because I've seen a lot of stories about how the company has really weaponized the dress code as a way to stop the union. And I've seen and have done it in frankly racist ways. I've seen stories of Palestinian and Arab folks who have been told they can't have a keffiyeh or a headscarf. I've seen stories of people with certain hairstyles told they can't have that. Like, what have you been dealing with that?
Yes. So funny enough, whenever they first introduced a new dress code, it was in writing that keffiyehs, do-rags, scarves, like any kind of like headwear that has been traditionally, used for like people of color have been basically, they said, nope, can't wear them. And that prompted so much backlash because there are so many people, like especially like black people who have, textured hair. We are not able to put our hair into protective styles or use the do-rags or the other forms of headwear that we need to be able to protect our hair from the environment, from the elements. So there was so much backlash that they walked it back about 2-3 days later. And they talk about being back to Starbucks. When it comes to just in general, it's just been so much in terms of, I'm trying to think of the right words to say it is. It has been done in a very racialized way and weaponized way. And the same thing for many other parts of the dress code that are directly harming our trans and our queer baristas as well. Back then we had a more freeing, a less restrictive dress code that allowed our trans and non-binary and our queer baristas to dress as they see themselves, to be able to be comfortable in their own skin. And Starbucks has promoted that. We've been such a very queer, very liberal, very, dare I say it, woke company for so long, and it just feels like a truly mask-off moment.
Because it's not really about the hair, is it, or the scarf or whatever it is. It's about power.
It is about power, and using these ways to basically strip us of our individuality to try to align us with being complicit in just conformity like that. It feels like it gives rise to just a greater slide into conservatism that I've noticed that many companies have seen, like many companies have, been subject to ever since the Trump administration started, like removing a lot of the DEI, markings because of executive orders, removing trans anything from anything, like to the point where like a lot of the websites that were representing like trans people on the government side have been just wiped off the face of the earth.
But you also say, they walked some of it back because of backlash, which just, goes to show, ultimately are scared of the people.
Oh, definitely. And I wanted to kind of circle back about money because if I remember correctly, I've seen some calls recently articles about calls that saying that sales have been declining. And I feel like that has been in no part to the efforts that a lot of allies, a lot of other customers, and just normal people have been doing to show that they stand with Starbucks workers. And I'm so proud to be part of a union where we can rely on our allies and rely on customers who see us as human. They actually see us as like human and not as like, oh, a coffee machine or a walking like thing to just throw coffee at if we have no freaking food or something. It feels good that there are some people that are actually empathetic to us, and it warms my heart that there are people like that.
Yeah, and that leads us, I want to get into also, for people out there who want to help. You and I, a little earlier today, we did a little bit of organizing. We were down at the Starbucks on Poydras Street,
Yes.
And we did what you call a sit-in. So you've got sit-ins with a P, and you've got sit-ins with a T. So what's a sit-in and what's a sit-in, and how do they work?
Sit-ins with a T, they're the same kind of sit-ins that have been traditionally done, even with Martin Luther King back in the 60s during the civil rights movement. These sit-ins are kind of more just kind of casual ways of being able to support union stores, or sometimes not yet union stores. You go into a Starbucks, you order something quick, easy, like an iced tea, a coffee.
I think I just got a plain black coffee.
Black coffee, or even better yet, just grab something from the ready-to-eat area. And you go up to the barista, you say, "Hey, I want to order this or this." When you get your total, they ask you for your name, and you say Union Strong or something along those lines to show that you are a union supporter. A lot of times, once they hear that you're a union supporter, a sigh of relief comes to some of them. But there are also stores, such as the Poydras one, that have been subject to immense amounts of union busting. And as a result of that immense amount of union busting, there's so much turnover, there's so much fear, so much disinformation that we have to, remember that is a thing and show them that, no, you matter, first of all, and that you do have rights. Just kind of give them remembrance, even with their, I'll say tyrannical, store manager or whatnot. Yeah. Give them just confidence to know that they can talk about these issues on the floor, and that is protected, that is legal to talk about being in a union. And you should feel proud to be in a union that is fighting so hard to protect you.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you decide what stores to do a sip-in at? Like, do you specifically go for ones that are, trying to organize and have faced intimidation?
Yes, a little bit of that. And there are some times where there are stores, like I said, they have gone cold, where because of the immense amount of backlash that they got from unionizing, or just the amount of turnover from either people getting fired or, people moving on to other things. They just need a little bit of a reminder.
Right.
There are ways that we do kind of target which stores that we can go to. This one in particular is because we just have so many people that are like-minded that we were able to organize something and just have them able to be, there with us. We did also have a sip-in a month ago, which turned a little hostile because of the union busting that was happening right in front of our faces. Dare I say illegal union busting that was happening right in our face, and that caused for the cops to be called. And we were kicked out, even though we were all following the rules of, we have to pay for our, things in order for us to use the facility. All we did was just sit down, take up the space, talk about cool union stuff, just be social, write union pins, just show that we're there. And there's so much intimidation, so much hostility the minute that the manager found out that it was that.
Yeah.
And it's just something that I feel like, people would do as a form of just like little small bits of organizing.
Yeah.
And doing the sit-ins, those are part of our bigger actions that we're trying to orchestrate in order to get Starbucks to come back to the bargaining table. And there will be more escalations happening until Starbucks can get back to the bargaining table.
And you've been organizing, out in Baton Rouge. You've been organizing here in New Orleans, and I know the Starbucks Workers Union has been all across the South. We say that organizing in the South is a little bit of a different ballgame, like compared to the North.
Yes. So, current example, going back to that first sitting we had last month, we had what that was called the Justice Journey. That we were fighting for immigrants' rights, we were fighting for all the rights of workers, and that was to show that the rights of immigrants and the rights of workers are all one and the same.
Yeah.
Part of that sip-in was just the same thing. We were all in a similar boat. We were all like-minded people, all union people, all union allies that were just in the same spot, and we were like, hey, there's a place that we can go to, to just show that unions are important. Unions are indeed like a thing that we need in order to protect ourselves from, tyrannical governments and, hostile environments and sometimes hostile management. So, yeah, those are, I don't know if I answered the question fully, but that was my long-winded way of saying that.
So it makes sense to me.
But organizing in the South has been a different ballpark because of just the extreme amounts of disinformation that has been disseminated just across all media down here. And a lot of it also has to do with the South's history in general of having less worker-friendly, being more anti-labor, and just anti-liberal mindsets as well. So organizing in such a red area is harsh. It's hard. There's been baristas who I know personally who've been doxxed due to union work, who have been put in danger because of union work here in the South. And it breaks my heart because why is it that us trying to care for people, us trying to make sure that we can protect our baristas, our shift supervisors, the people that make you coffee every day, why is it that protecting them is causing you such harm that you have to give harm to us? Why is it that us organizing, trying to stand up with rights of everybody, of other people, why is it such a cardinal sin to care for people?
Yeah, absolutely. And with that in mind, one of the things that really annoys me when I'm looking at, conversations about this, on the internet, conversations, in, the usual suspects, Twitter, Facebook. There's a lot of people out there who, and, it's some conservatives and it's also, some leftists or, some people who think they're leftists who reckon that, the Starbucks union battle and baristas work is not as, legit as, like factory work or, the auto workers or something like that. Like they really look down on it, say it's, not productive labor, stuff like that. So what do you say to those people?
It's funny that you say that our labor isn't productive labor is because of the fact that if it wasn't for our labor, you wouldn't have enough energy to do your labor. So why is it that you feel like your labor is more important than our labor when our labor is the reason that you can do your labor? Our labor is the reason that you can even get up in the morning to even think about doing your labor. I'll even expand on that. Why is it that so many people look down upon those who, are making a living or trying to make a paycheck, waiting tables, like making food, making coffee, doing other services, like even like, housekeeping. Why is it that whenever we try to organize so we can actually be paid what we're worth, that they want to come in and try to strike us down, thinking that it's not worth it because we're not productive or that we're unskilled? But let me tell you this: no labor is unskilled. There are people that I know that are in office right now that wouldn't even be able to stand 5 minutes at a very busy drive-through store.
Yeah.
Having being attacked from all sides, talking about getting one coffee here while you're trying to take an order on the drive-through while making a drink in the other hand.
I always think, the CEOs, these companies like Starbucks, like Walmart, like, I'd like to see them try to survive a shift.
I would love to see them try to go undercover boss one day.
Does he even know how to make a cup of coffee himself, like just for himself?
Many of our district managers don't even know how to make a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
Like, I remember a time where we maybe had like a group of managers show up and they were actively heckling one manager for not knowing how to make a coffee. And it was the middle of what we call peak season. So the busiest part of the day. Why is it that they were heckling them, being in the way, mind you? They're in the way of trying to, of doing our work. And because of that, we had to work around that while they're just saying like, oh, you don't know how to make a drink. Oh, you don't know how to build a standard. What? That's like all I can simply say is just like, what? It's just honestly just sad to see that the people that don't know the means of the production are over us. The means of production of how to make the coffee to even serve the customers that you make money off of every day. They don't know how to do that. They don't know how to run 3 shifts all at once. They don't know how to handle if someone calls out and we're short-staffed. And yet, they what? They want to use AI to make orders for us. They want to use algorithms to deploy our plays. It's inhumane. It's anti-worker. It's anti-labor.
Lastly, for anybody out there who either works at a Starbucks right now and is thinking of unionizing, or who doesn't work at one but wants to support the union effort, what can folks do to lend a hand on this?
I think that right now the simplest thing you can do is talk to baristas about unionizing, about the positives that it could be, and if there's any negative pushback to that, you can tell them that a lot of it is disinformation. Information is power. Knowledge is power. There are also more things you can do to support us if you want to support us financially. We do have a merch store, unioncoffeegear.com. All union made merch, shirts, tumblers, hats, you name it, buttons. And they're all going to future funding for our fellow baristas in case of whether like strikes or mutual aid or along those lines. And we also have a no contract, no coffee pledge that we are urging people to sign. So, and the time comes that we have to strike, if it has to happen, we will have the support that we need for people to not cross the picket line when that happens. Like customers, organizations, anybody that supports workers, anybody who supports labor, anybody who supports, a living wage, that supports people living and being able to have pride in their work without having to worry about, oh my God, am I going to have this job tomorrow? all of y'all should be able to sign this and to support us. I will also personally like to try to expand my reach by, supporting more causes as well, being able to, join more picket lines of other unions, show solidarity with those unions and with these causes that are, for the benefit of not only baristas, but for people to be free.
Yeah. All right, well, you heard the man. Let's go to those websites. Let's talk to your baristas. Let's get this done. Say, Jason, thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, thank you.
And we'll talk to you soon.
There's one more thing I'd like to say.
Yeah, go for it.
We want Starbucks to come back to the bargaining table in good faith. We want to finish this contract, and we need this finished yesterday. We need to get this contract finished immediately.
Thanks for watching. This video is a product of Current Affairs Magazine, the country's leading independent left print magazine based here in New Orleans, Louisiana. Go to currentaffairs.org to find out more about us, and currentaffairs.org/subscribe to subscribe to our absolutely gorgeous bi-monthly print edition. Get it in your mailbox. You can also subscribe to the Current Affairs News Briefing, the Current Affairs Podcast, or you can subscribe to our digital edition. Current Affairs is entirely reader-supported. We have no ads. We have no corporate backers. We depend on you. So please consider purchasing a subscription or making a donation to Current Affairs today. We are a 501c3 non-profit organization, and your donations are tax-deductible to the extent allowable by law. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching.